does Hideo Kojima get his ideas? In this podcast, we take a deep dive into his brain and shed light on his creative process. Hideo Kojima presents Brain Structure.
こんにちは、小島秀夫です。ポッドキャストプログラム、Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure.
Hello, I'm Hideo Kojima, here with the podcast program, Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure. As always, I am joined by my partner for the show.
Brains here. I'm looking forward to talking with you again today.
Let's get started.
Our show has been accepting messages in our Brain Structure mailbox. And since we've received many messages from our listeners all over the world, today's episode will be a listener message special.Mr. Kojima, we will have you answer as many messages today as our time allows.
はい、全部は無理なんですけど。
I won't be able to answer them all. There were a lot of similar questions too.
Indeed, and in addition to reading everyone's questions, I believe we will also listen to quite a few songs selected by you as well.
以前バンゲリスの回って音楽会1回だけやりましたけど。
Right. We already did a music episode featuring Vangelis music, but since we have the ability to play music here on Spotify, this time,We'll be playing music by some of my favorite musicians. They are mostly artists who were active 10 or 20 years ago, but I've selected songs from their recent releases that I would like everyone to listen to. It's quite a biased selection, but I hope everyone enjoys them.
楽しんでくださいね。で、
And if you like the song, you can listen to the entire album on Spotify.
Yes.
Everyone can use this chance to listen to older songs by these artists and even explore their genres as a whole.I intended to turn this episode of Brain Structure into an opportunity for everyone to discover music.
Yes, we should take advantage of this feature on Spotify. Let me briefly explain how the music will work on the Spotify podcast. Everyone subscribed to Spotify Premium will be able to listen to the full version of the songs, while those listening for free will get a 30-second preview of each song.
なるべくフルで聞いていただきたいんですけど、
I really want people to listen to the whole song. Those who can listen to the full version can use their accounts.To listen to a lot of other music too.
Well, let's begin. Allow me to read the commemorative first message.
Yes, the commemorative first message.
Nickname, Tio. Which part in the process of creating a game do you enjoy working the most?
これね、まず今のゲーム AAA のやつ。
To begin with, AAA games take 4 or 5 years to complete. If you work from dawn to dusk, it'll take about that long to finish.I first start by making a plan just within my mind. I think about stories, themes, game design, etc. At this stage, nothing costs any money, and since it can be done mentally, it's the most fun part for me. It's free, the staff doesn't need to work on anything, there's nothing physically there at this point, and I can do it all by myself. I can use my imagination, and it's a lot of fun. But then, as I proceed, I feel the need to tell somebody about it.I stop and chat with my staff and say, hey, I thought of this idea. But at that point, nobody understands what I'm trying to say.
It's difficult to explain?
すごい興奮して言うんですけど。
Well, I get super excited about it, and since I can't show them the inside of my brain, I have to make do with my clumsy vocabulary and nobody really gets it. But then we start building a plan, making the specification documents, putting together a team, and beginning development.At first, everyone is kind of working blindly and nobody really understands what my vision is. The visuals are created with the art team as we try to figure out what kind of world it's going to be. We're groping in the dark and making things as we go, so I get a bit anxious. Sometimes I'm like, that's not quite right, and I want them to think in a different direction. But then, there comes a time when we have settled on a world view or a basic system for the game after lots of experimenting.And then it becomes fun again.
I see.
要は形がなかったものが。
I mean, something that had no shape or form before is now in existence and you can play it. There's a moment when the team unites like, this is it. This is what we are all working towards. That is where we're headed. And then we move on to the next step, and this is when it's fun.
Are there times when a project is stopped after you've explained it to everyone?
僕のゲームはない。
Not with my games, at least. It hasn't happened yet. And I always release a teaser long before the game is finished to show the world view, the music, the colors, etc. People think that its purpose is to present the game to everyone around the world, but actually, it's not. It's to show the staff.
Interesting.
3年4年って結構ね
I mean, those 3-4 years are really tough. The staff go through life changes like getting married or having children and whatnot. And during those 3 or 4 years, you really want to know what kind of world you've thrown yourself into. So by creating a teaser early and sharing it with everyone, they're like, oh, so that's what we've been working on. Also, when we announce it, there's no turning back. And of course, the staff's names are on it. This whole time, their girlfriends, husbands, mothers, fathers, siblings, and friends are like, what are you working on? Because they know that they're working at Kojima Productions. But they can't tell anybody, not even their siblings or family. But once it's announced, they can finally tell everyone.
I see.
例えばティザーが出て
So once the teaser is released and everyone's like, that's what you've been making, the staff can be like, I'm involved in that, or I made that part in that scene, and everyone can say, wow, great job. And this boost in morale will last for 3 years. But it's after that when the really hard battle begins, because at the end, there's the debugging process. Right before debugging, the meat and bones of the game have been implemented, and you can play through the game from the beginning. A lot of the game will have begun to take shape, and it's enjoyable.
で余裕が出てくるんで、あとはここをどうしようあそこを削ろうって
That's when things are a bit less stressful. You just think about what to do here and there and what to cut. It's like a marathon. When there's nothing there and you can't see the goal, it's so difficult.
That's true.
なんとなく
And then, when you're about 75% finished and there's only so much left, you get your second wind.
I see.
But with games, right before you reach your goal, you have to deal with debugging. There are a lot of bugs. That's the hardest part. Your release date is already set, and you need to secure the quality of the game. It's really tough.
So it's a back and forth between the really fun times and the really not so fun times?
ただやっぱり最終的にゲームが出
Yes,
て
but honestly, once the game is finished, if it succeeds and everyone loves it, you end up forgetting all the hard times. It's really addictive. And when it's your first time doing this, whether or not your first game sells well or it gets good reviews will ultimately make or break the person. So for me, I suppose the fun part is all of it.
All of it?
The hard parts are all of it too.
Really? How so?
辛いというかちょっと麻薬みたいなもんなんで、
The hard parts are kind of like drugs. You begin to feel like you can't live without them. Many game developers, well, probably not only games, but people who create things in general probably feel this way. Creators like us make products that are meant to be sold, so there are successes and failures in that sense. So if you have at least somewhat of a success, you can start to see the next steps. And you can slowly start climbing those stairs. But if you fall pretty far down from the get-go, it becomes fairly difficult to crawl back up again.
But you can keep climbing upwards, little by little?
で少しずつ上がっていると
Yeah, and once you make a bit of progress, you gain more energy to keep moving forward.
Let's move on to our next message then. Nickname, Kazuchi.
あ和志さんこの常連の人ですね
Kazuuchi. They're a regular from all the way back in the Hideo-chan radio times.
Kazuchi writes, I really enjoyed episode 7 where you talked about Vangelis. I would really love it if you did another episode based on music.
はいね先ほども言いまし
Yes,
たよ Spotify
I mentioned this earlier, but since this is on Spotify and we can play music, I'd like to do a music episode regularly. Today is also one of those episodes, so I'd like for us to sandwich in a few songs. Also, Ennio Morricone passed away, but they're going to do some sort of documentary movie on him. Maybe next year? When it's released, I'd like to do a special on Morricone.
I'm looking forward to it.
He has so many great songs, so maybe we'll play like 2 hours worth of songs.
2 hours? On the podcast?
選べないんで
I can't choose. There are so many good ones.
And here's another message. Nickname, Toby. Why are you so lovely?
なんかそんなこと言われたことないですよラブリーっていうのは
I don't know if I want to be called that. Lovely. What exactly do they mean by lovely?
It has the nuance of being cute or lovable.
There's no way I'm cute. I'm almost 60 years old.
You have a really lovable character.
ラブリーかどうかは分かりませんけど
Well, I'm not sure if it's the same as being lovely, but I am often told that I'm really energetic. But on the inside, I'm pretty worn out. People ask me why I'm so full of energy, but I think it's because I'm always giving it my all. I think that's what it all comes down to.
You do what you love to do.
好きなことなんですよ、これやっぱり全部。
I really do love all of it. I think later on we're going to discuss my work-life balance, but yeah, I can do all of these things because I love it. But I can also do things I dislike so that I can continue doing the things I love. If you only do the things you love, you won't grow. So, if you have something you love, the things you hate aren't so bad either. At least that's what I think.
I think now would be a good time to play some music Mr. Kojima has selected for this episode. Could you please introduce the song?
パニックアトタディスコから、Don't Let the Light Go Out.
Here is Don't Let the Light Go Out by Panic at the...
Go Out by Panic at the Disco. You're listening to Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure. Today, we're reading off messages from listeners around the world.
はい。
Yes.
Nickname, Shower Think Man.
まん
A
ま
very obvious name.
Very obvious. He writes, Most of my best ideas come to me when I'm in the shower. Do you have a place where you go to for inspiration and to help generate new ideas?
まあシャワーシンクマンでね。シャワー。
I get it, because you're a shower think man. In other countries, people take showers. But in Japan, we take baths. Thinking in the bath, I'm not very good at that. It's just too hot. I don't really take long bath either. I'm in and out in basically 5 minutes. I'm constantly thinking about stuff 24 hours a day, but ideas usually come to me when I'm doing something with rhythm, like going on a walk, or riding the train, when I used to take the train for long periods of time. Vehicles like trains or cars or buses, places that have a steady rhythm, are good. So when I drive, I get into accidents, because I'm too distracted by my
考え
thoughts.
事する。
That's dangerous.
I try to avoid driving whenever possible.
Do you often ride the
バ
bus?
スとか電車乗りますよね。
Yeah, I ride buses and trains, and I get a lot of ideas when I'm out walking. For example, say my brain gets stuck while writing up a specs document at work.
Okay.
There will be a specific spot where I can't come up with anything. So then I take a bathroom break, and when I get back, the idea is there.
When you go to the
トイレ
bathroom?
に行く過程で。
Yes, the process of going to the restroom. I don't really need to use the bathroom, or sometimes I go over to my staff and just have some meaningless conversation. And somewhere along the way, a light bulb goes off in my head. If you stimulate another part of your brain gets unstuck. It may be weird for me to say this at my age, but one thing I never run out of is ideas. But actually making things is tough because I don't have enough physical strength. Anyways, I guess most people think when they're in the shower or bath. I even think when I'm sleeping, like in my dreams.
Many people say that. Do you write down what you saw in your dreams after you wake
あ
up?
それはないんですけど、スマホ
No, I don't write notes because I have a smartphone, but I do use the memo app to jot down words and stuff.
Is your memo app pretty full?
I write my movie reviews and book commentaries on my phone because I don't really have a lot of time.
時間がないんで。
I would be interested in seeing your memo app. Well, let's move on to our next message. Nickname, Ditto Ronaldo. Are you planning to release a behind the scenes for Death Stranding? And when are you going to have Nicholas on the podcast?
これメイキングは当然デストランディング
Of course, we filmed behind the scenes footage for Death Stranding from the very beginning, in that tiny room right after the studio became independent. We shot footage during filming sessions with the actors too. And well, a lot happened. You know, typically the making of footage is released right after the game goes on sale.
Yes, that is usually the case.
ネタバレもあるので。
Because there are usually spoilers in it too. Anyways, we couldn't release it because there was just so much footage and nobody could handle it. We had a director for it, but things didn't work out and we had to make some changes. So we had the footage and planned to release it alongside Death Stranding Director's Cut, but there was just too much footage. We were like, who is going to organize all this?
そんねみたいなのもあって。
And then we just set it aside for a while. But it's finally coming together. It won't be released for a little while longer, but it's a watchable length. Not too long, not too short.
Just the right length?
はい。いいものになってる。
Yes, and I think it's pretty good. I still need to decide when to release it though. It's the making of Death Stranding, but it's also a bit like a documentary about me. I'll announce it when we're ready to announce it, so yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
そしてレフン監督
And Nicholas Refn. They want him to be on the podcast?
I think so.
I think he would do it. Yeah, I think he would be willing to be on it right away.
Will you invite him?
出たがってましたから
He himself said he wants to be on it. We haven't recorded anything yet, though. I gave him a nickname. I call him Refn-chan.
レフンちゃんって言ってますけどレフンちゃんが一
I
番
have the best relationship with Refn-chan.
Oh, really? Amongst all directors?
Amongst all creators, maybe. He sends me messages like every other day. Silly ones, too.
You really are close.
はいほとんど映像か写真です
Yeah, usually he sends me videos or photos.
What type of photos?
Like selfies or stuff he wants to show off. Like when he buys a new Japanese anime or something. So I send him stuff to try and top him, and then he sends me more stuff.
It seems very casual.
内容はないです社会的な
The content is nothing deep. There isn't like a social theme or anything. Mostly just bragging and whatnot. That and recent updates. Anyways, let me ask him and see.
Please do. Next, we have a message from Will. Do you listen to music while working? If so, what is it?
うん僕の半分ぐらいは企画書書いたり
Yes, about half of my time is spent writing concepts and ideas in spec documents, and so whenever I'm working on the computer, I listen to music. When I'm writing the script, though, I don't listen to any Japanese music. With Japanese songs, the lyrics get in the way and my thoughts start heading in other directions. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
英語の歌でも
And with English songs, if the lyrics contain too many easy words, those get in the way too. So when I'm writing the script, I listen to either English music or movie soundtracks. Soundtracks or ambient songs without any singing. Especially when I'm writing script. When the plot and the characters are set and I know what I want to write, I imagine what kinds of things the characters might say. Then I'll play a soundtrack that matches that, and the writing just happens naturally. It's like I'm not myself almost.
You try to create the right atmosphere?
でもう気がつくともうできてる
Yeah, and before I know it, it's finished. And then I look it over once more, this time using the left side of my brain. So you could say that I try and use music effectively as possible. Like I said earlier though, if I listen to Japanese radio, the words just get in the way, so I can't listen to it.
Since we've just read a message about music, now would be a good time to play another song.
はいミューズの新譜ですね9枚目のアルバムから、コンプライアンス
Yes, I've chosen a new song by Muse titled Compliance from their 9th album.
If you just give us your compliance, we just need your compliance. You will feel no pain anymore, no more defiance. Just give us your compliance.
You just heard Compliance by Muse.
コンプライアンス
I'm a big fan of Muse. I've been to 3 or 4 of their live concerts.
Were those in Japan?
Yes, in Japan. They're quite popular here in Japan too. I would really like to go to another concert.
Sounds like fun. Let's continue reading some more messages. Nickname, Tori to Ajisai.
鳥とアジサイさん
Torito Ajisai must be a Japanese person, I'm guessing.
I believe they are Japanese. Tori to Ajisai translates to bird and hydrangea. They write, AI-generated illustrations are currently a big topic of conversation. Have you found these discussions interesting? What are your thoughts on the interaction between humans and AI?
これはですねもう AI なしには多分無理ですよこれから
Honestly, I think a future without AI is impossible at this point. We have anti-AI people, but even Google is a form of AI. And your smartphone too, which allows you to search for stuff or helps you when you're lost. All kinds of technology are already a part of our daily lives, and AI will only continue to increase in the future. I don't think I can imagine a future without AI, setting aside whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I see.
隕石が降ってくるか
When a meteorite falls onto Earth or if an apocalyptic nuclear war occurs, maybe then AI will go away. Right now, we make artificial intelligence create art. There are a lot of AI music, and they are even in our education systems. Refrigerators, TVs, watches, all of these things have AI in them. I think it all depends on how you use it. It's not just one AI, but rather multiple AIs within various technologies. And those AI will learn, and they will connect with other AI, and it will create a neural network. It's not like there is one big AI and we'll be okay if we destroy just the one. Every last thing will have AI in it. I think there will come a time when I develop a game with just myself and AI, not the staff. It can be cumbersome to work with staff.
I feel sorry for the staff.
いやいや
No. But you know, AI isn't capable of creating new things. It uses old data to make something. So you can feed something with data to an AI and leave it up to them. Like nowadays, AI can create remakes.
Yes, you're right.
まあ映画をきれいにするやつも AI ができると思う
Like remastering movies. That's something an AI can do. Right now, what AI does is a process called learning, in which they gather information. And what humans ought to do is create something new by stepping out into unknown worlds. And then, when AI accumulates more data, they will take over our jobs.
I see.
どんどん追ってくるんですよ後ろ
AI is going to keep biting at our heels. And I think our way of life is going to change it to how long we can stay ahead of them. I believe that communication and human relations are the most difficult things for AI. Right now, I am directly talking to you, but as you know, there are lots of apps out there. And in the future, it's all going to be done through AI.
What do you mean?
それぞれの AI
Everyone's personal AI. I think everyone will have their own AI eventually. And so, when you go to the hospital, you won't talk with the doctor. Your AI and your doctor's AI will communicate with each other, and only good things will be said during the conversation. And the question remains, what will happen to communication?
I see your point. Sounds like humans will need to evolve.
人間はもうこれ以上進化していけない
I don't think humans can evolve any more than we already have. Our bodily form is all the same.
So then, do you believe that AI will replace humans?
いや住み分けですね
No, I think we will be segregated. I think maybe it's going to be about figuring out how to live alongside AI as they continue to exist and how we can create a happy and peaceful world. Education, romance too, even family relations. AI will be involved in all that. But I think then that abuse won't happen. No neglect because AI will do it for you.
That is interesting.
But if you leave everything to the AI, that will be another form of neglect, right?
Yes.
親は何もしてへん
Parents would end up doing nothing at all. That would lead to an entirely different discussion. It's pretty interesting though.
The balance of the future.
AI が入ることで
Yes, once AI gets involved, your lifestyle will change. That seems like it would be interesting, maybe. But when wars evolve to become not people versus people, nor nation versus nation, but AI versus AI, I wouldn't like a world like that.
I agree. Let's move on to our next message. This is from Skyrunner. They write, "What's the most terrifying thing in your daily life?"
これはですねあんまり言いたくないんですけど
Honestly, I don't really want to say this, but I fear the amount of time I have remaining. It didn't used to scare me. Then the pandemic happened, and this year I turned 59. Next year I'll be 60. How many years do I have left? Or rather, how many more games can I make? I never used to think like that. I still don't think much about what my future holds, but at this age, I can start calculating things.
でいくと計算できるじゃない
If it were a marathon, I've already passed the turnaround point at the halfway marker.
I see.
で人間って怖いので行きは
Human beings are scared when they have no experience the first trip to the turnaround point. So while they may have freedom, there is also an element of worry and fear. But when you're heading back from the path you came from, you've already seen what's to come. You can recall the hard times and the uphill battles. And when you have that experience, you can start seeing how much is left. Is it 10 years or maybe 20? I want to keep making things forever. I'm trying to be mindful of my health, but I do wonder how much time I have left and what I should do with that time. It's scary. I didn't think about this kind of stuff 3 or 4 years ago.
Really? I think that's actually pretty unusual.
いや全く考えてもうがむしゃらですよ。
I didn't think about it at all. I was just so busy living life frantically. I just lived for today. I didn't think about tomorrow. And you know, on the news and stuff, when they introduce creators, they always say how old they are, right?
Right.
あれを見てしまうようになりました
I。started paying attention to that. I used to get depressed when I saw successful people who were younger than me. Like, wow, they made that movie at that age? But it's different now. I see that they're 25 or something, and I'm like, oh, they can keep going. And if they're 80, I'm like, oh, they might only have a little bit more left. And then, if they are older than me, or if they are around my age, I wonder how many years they have left, or how many more things they can make. And then I see it on Twitter too. People saying things like, I think Kojima has about 3 more games left in him. And I'm like, no, don't say that.
やめてくれよお前ら。
People write that?
They do.
That's unpleasant.
でもね映画監督の人たちも同じ
But it's the
話。
same with other directors I've talked with lately. Like, if you follow the appropriate steps, you can pretty much calculate how many more movies you could make. So then it becomes a matter of whether you should work on it or not. Or perhaps work on something else. Maybe you should take it easy and go on a trip or something.
That's understandable. I think now would be a good time to play our next song. Mr. Kojima, please tell us what you've selected.
はい、アークティックモンキーズのこの新譜ですね。7枚目の
Yes, this next song is a new one by Arctic Monkeys. From their 7th album, The Car, here's the song, Big Idea.
Big ideas, the band was so excited. The kind you'd rather not share over the phone. But now the orchestra's got us all surrounded. And I cannot for the life of me remember how they go.
You have just heard Big Idea by Arctic Monkeys.
今回すごいんですよこのアルバム。
This was really an amazing album. The vocals are like David Bowie level. Great, right?
Yes, it was. You're listening to Hideo Kojima presents Brain Structure. Today, we are answering messages from our listeners all over the world. Our next message comes from Keigo Makishima.
はい、この人も常連やったんで。
Yes, this person also writes to us a lot, I believe.
That's wonderful. They write, Mr. Kojima, in addition to making games, you watch movies and read books. It's hard to believe we are spending the same 24 hours in a day. You must be a time management genius. How do you spend your hours, and how do you make time for things? Please share your secrets. And one more message from Tariq Al-Shamari. How do you balance your work and life? I'm interested because you watch movies every day, and I suspect that you are doing this during your working hours.
これね勤務時間中では見てないんですよ。
I don't watch during my working hours. I sometimes have advanced movie screenings during working hours, but usually I do things after work ends and before I go to sleep. So people ask me this a lot. The answer is, I don't do any time management.
You don't? Please explain.
24時間しかないんですけど、
There are only 24 hours in a day, but I don't spend any time zoning out. I'm always doing something. In Death Stranding, there's a beach where the time axis runs differently from the rest of the world. I feel like I'm living there. I may be operating on a different time axis from everybody else, but for the most part, I am a multitasker. I'm always thinking about something else while focusing on another thing. It's not really an answer to the question at hand, but I don't think about work-life balance. I'm just living 100%. I even think in my sleep.
So do you wake up at the same time every day? Do you set exact working hours?
ありますあります。
Yes. I usually go to bed around 1:30 a.m. and since I'm getting old, I wake up with nightmares.
You do?
So I wake up in the middle of the night and then I read a book. After that, I go to work and tweet while working. Then I go back home and read a book or watch a movie. I also listen to music when I work or in the morning or on my way to work. I think this is all pretty normal. However, I don't ever waste time. I say this a lot, but I don't want to die before I've learned everything about this world. Although I think that's inevitable. But I want to learn about everything from books to movies to music to the sights around the world. And in order to do that, I wouldn't say I'm rushing through life, but I don't have time to waste doing nothing. I don't know if it's okay to say that. People always tell me to relax. But even when I go on a vacation, there are tons of information to absorb. So I'm constantly thinking about stuff. Even when I'm on vacation with my family, because everything is stimulating. People don't like that kind of person. Anyways, I've never slept in until 3 p.m. on the weekends and stuff like that.
So you are always generating ideas, no matter what you're doing?
これ仕事じゃないんですよ。
This isn't really work. If it was just work, I wouldn't be able to do it. At first, it was work. I wanted to make stuff, and in order to share it with the world, I had to join a company to create games. And then people around the world became fans and said things like, "Your work really saved me." And from then on, it stopped being just work for me. I realized that I could devote my life to this if those people existed. I suppose I have lasted this long because I'm doing what I love, but just doing what you like isn't enough to keep you going. There are people waiting for me. And although I can't see everyone's faces, I get a jolt of adrenaline knowing they're out there, and I am able to work hard thanks to my fans.
That's wonderful. Okay, let's move on to our next question.
いいですが答えになってませんけど。
Was that alright? I don't think I answered the question.
I think you did.
一生懸命いきましょうと。
Just giving it your all. 100% to everything.
And don't waste time doing nothing.
ぼーっとするの。
Well, doing nothing is probably a good thing too, actually.
Yes, so our next message comes from Sparkin. Kojima-san, how do you decide your next project to work on? I think creative minds like yours tend to have billions of ideas, so it must be quite hard to pick a few in that ocean of inspiration.
これアイデアがいっぱいこう日々。
Every single day, I come up with new ideas. I take notes of small, detailed ones, but I get ideas for worlds or games or stories every day when I'm stimulated in some way. But I don't write them down. They get weeded out and overwritten. I usually have 20 or 30 world stories and game systems running around in my head. They go through a selection process and eventually the one that's left is the best one. And actually, deciding what to go with requires consideration for the business side of things too. I come up with various ideas as a creator, but whether or not those ideas can be made into a product that will sell is a different issue. Games won't be released for about 4 years, so something that could sell now might not sell well in 4 years' time. So we need to predict the world 4 years from now and adjust the idea first. We need to prioritize what will sell well 4 years later and also think about the direction that the world is headed in. And that's how we decide the order in which to make things. Maybe there is an opportunity for another project too. Sometimes you have this great idea for something, but maybe the technology or the skills or our know-how isn't good enough to make it happen at the time. Maybe we can't do something with our current level of experience, so we put that idea on the back burner for the moment. It would be great if the technology was advanced enough for the idea, but if it's not, we have to wait for that technology to catch up, so the idea gets put on hold. So that's the second step of selecting an idea. And then, the third is maybe the most difficult to explain. Even if we have the new technology for something, and even if we can make it and see that there's a potential for it to sell well, there might not be a market that is prepared for it. For example, you can't make a movie unless there are movie theaters around the world. If there were just 10 movie theaters in Tokyo, that wouldn't be enough.
I see.
なんで、テクノロジーも OK。
So the technology may be good, the idea may be good, but it might not be a service or system that is readily available or accessible like a network environment. For example, 15 years ago, all these streaming subscription services that provide TV shows and dramas would have been utterly impossible. Ah, wait, it's not just 3, there's one more. The last one is whether or not we have a team that can make it. We might not have enough people or people with the right skills. So, the order in which I develop ideas shifts around. I decide which one to make next according to these factors.
Is it pretty easy to narrow things down once you consider those 4 factors?
まあそんだけ言いましたけど、最後は
Well,
やりたいかどうか。
I said a lot of things just now, but in the end, it all comes down to whether I want to make it or not.
ですよね。自分が乗れるかどうか。
Being able to get fully on board is really important. It's the same with movies, but you need to be able to hang in there for the 4 years or however much time you end up working on the project. So if you don't like it, you'll end up forcing it and it won't go well in the end. Well, there are people out there who make something that follows a bandwagon just because it's a big hit or something. But it's really hard to fully invest in something you're not suited to. In the end, it gets really tough. So that's how I make my decisions.
I see. Let's take this opportunity to play some more music. Today, we're playing recently released songs selected by Mr. Kojima. Could you please introduce the next song for us?
エディターズのこれも新譜7枚目。
This next song is a new song by Editors from their 7th album, EBM. Here is Karma Climb.
You just listened to Karma Climb by Editors. On today's episode, we are responding to messages from listeners around the world. We are now down to the last few. Our message is from Himanshu. Do you have a message to young writers and actors?
これなんか若い作家の俳優がなんで入ってるんですかね。
Young writers and young actors? Is this person an actor, maybe?
Perhaps so.
作家で俳優なんですよね、多分このヒマンシュさん。
Himanshu is probably a writer and an actor. Well, as a 59-year-old man, I can say this and know it's the truth. Being an inexperienced youth is a strength. As people get older, they get more set in their ways. People say you have more experience, but having a fresh outlook can give you the ability to make new things. So, don't be afraid and put yourself out there. If you hold back while you're young, you're going to waste your youth. Now is your chance. If you fail, you fail. You're still young. It's going to be okay.
Thank you for that. So today, we've been playing newly released songs selected by Mr. Kojima, and the next song will be our last one. Mr. Kojima, please tell us what we will be listening to.
はい、ホットチップの、これも新作のアルバム8枚目です。その8枚目のアルバムから、Time。
This song is from the new album by Hot Chip. From the 8th album, here is Time.
はい、ブレインストラクチャー早くもエンディングのお時間です。
Brain structure. It's already time to wrap this episode.
Yes, it is. Today, we've read many messages from Brain Structure listeners. What did you think?
こういう会を続けていきたいんで。
I'd like to do this again, so please send us more messages. It can be non-game related things too, like relationship advice. Anything goes.
Yes, please. By the way, this inquiry also came in from a listener nicknamed Milad. Why don't you release podcast videos with English subtitles?
これいい質問ですね。これ計画中なんで。
This is a great question. Actually, we're working on this. I think we're going to need a big budget for it. So please stay tuned.
Yes, please look forward to it.
もう皆さんの言う通りに動きますから我々。
We'll do whatever you guys say. The ranking is everything.
You are so honest. Brain Structure will continue accepting messages from all our listeners. Please send us ideas for the show, guest suggestions, theme suggestions, or any messages you have for Mr. Kojima. The link to the message form is in the Spotify episode description. We're waiting to hear from you. Finally, before we end the show, we would like to address one final thing. On October 29th, 2022, the social media account for the Icelandic band Low Roar announced that their lead singer, Ryan Karaja, had passed away at the young age of 40. Ryan was a big part of the music in Death Stranding as well. It was very sudden, but Mr. Kojima, do you have anything you would like to say?
まあ昨日の朝ニュースに出たんで。
I saw the news yesterday morning, and I still haven't recovered from the shock. Ryan was really talented. It's so unfortunate. I visited Iceland 8 or 9 years ago and stopped by one of the coolest record shops where you could also get coffee. It was recommended to me, so I went there to buy a bunch of CDs. When I was lined up at the register, Low Roar's second album happened to be playing. I asked who that artist was and ended up buying their album and became a fan. When I became independent, I was going to release the first teaser for Death Stranding at 2016's E3, but we didn't have the sound team put together yet. I couldn't decide what to do for the sound. And then I remembered the Low Roar song I'll Keep Coming that Ryan made and ended up using it on the trailer. That's how I started to get in touch with Ryan, and we eventually ended up making a lot of songs for Death Stranding. They were actually supposed to have a live concert in Japan in 2020, but it got canceled due to the pandemic. I haven't really been in touch with him lately, but we followed each other on Instagram and we liked each other's posts. Since the pandemic has gotten somewhat better, I was planning to ask him to do some more music for us. And then this news came in. I still haven't recovered from this tragic news. I received a lot of messages from many fans too.
まあ彼の曲は、この世界に永遠に残りますんで。
His work will most definitely live on forever. So, I would like to play one of his songs as we end the show today. Here is Don't Be So Serious by Low Roar.
ではローロアで Don't Be So Serious。
Don't be so serious. Don't be so serious. Don't be so serious. Don't be so serious.